My name's Brad. I'm one of the pastors on staff here at Salina First Church of God, and I want to welcome you into this week's Weekly Wednesday Word, a spot where we can curiously engage a random piece of Scripture. So each week we're going to be able to look at a random piece of Scripture literally by the roll of a dice, and we're going to see where we can find the Lord's engagement looking through four specific lenses. The first is just a literal interpretation of the passage, what's happening on the word, what's happening on the page. Second, we're going to look at the interpretive lens, kind of what is the meaning behind the words. Third, we're going to look at the application. What does the word mean for you and for me today? And finally, a mystery application, a mystery lens. Something that is mysterious that the Spirit is leading me in this space, and perhaps a mystery that is leading you as we engage in the Word. So first and foremost, we're going to look at what Scripture we're going to be looking at today. So first, we're going to look at what book or what gospel we're going to be looking at. So that's one, that is the book of Matthew. Let's see which chapter we're going to be in. That's chapter 8. Let's do another D20 to see what verse. So where that is Matthew chapter 8, verse 17. Our text today is Matthew 8, verse 17, which says this. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. So let's look at the literal lens. What's literally happening in this text? Well, this happened a little bit after when Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. Because of that, a lot of people came in because there's a guy that's literally healing the sick. So anyone that has sickness or infirmities or anything that could be physically healed, they start coming and flocking to Jesus, and Jesus is healing and healing and healing. And what our author Matthew is trying to say, he's trying to point this back and connect this to an older piece of Scripture, a prophecy of Isaiah, who said that when the servant comes, when the suffering servant comes, when the Messiah comes, you're going to know him because he's going to be able to bear our infirmities, to take on our sickness, to take on the things that make us unwell. And we see this literally happening in the life of Jesus. He's bearing the people's infirmities. So that's what is literally happening within this text. So if we then take our mind and put it towards the interpretive lens, we can start asking the question, well, what does this actually mean? Well, if we look at the text itself, he took up our infirmities and bore our diseases. There's this language, there's this idea. There's not even a direct translation of he's going to heal you. No, he says he's going to take on our infirmities. He's going to take on our diseases. He's going to bear them. And that gives us this idea that this isn't just about a physical healing. It's also about a taking on of the things that we were not meant to carry. That there's this idea that there is life made manifest. And that as we come to him, as we move towards that life, that he can actually he can bear the things that we were not meant to handle. We were not meant to handle disease or death or darkness. And this life one, this living one, can. And so interpretively, he can take us and he can bear the things that are heavy for us to bear. And we actually see in the full context of the Isaiah passage that there is a promise of ultimate freedom, of ultimate forgiveness, an ultimate life that later we see Jesus lived out on the cross. So we see people physically coming to Jesus at this time and in this space for him to bear their diseases, to heal them, to give them freedom from physical ailments. And interpretively, we can kind of say, yes, he can not only physically heal, but there's also this spiritual healing. As we go towards Jesus, that he can bear the things that we were never meant to carry on our own. So as we turn our hearts and minds towards this application, I can't help but consider this in my life, and maybe for you as well. How often do we trust God? Do we trust Jesus with the things that weigh us down? How often do we, even as Christians, knowing who can hold the burdens far better than you or I could, how often do we kind of opt for just handling it ourselves? I wonder, friend, how often you turn to Jesus or turn to the Lord to just hold on to some of the heavy realities of this world. And maybe this day, this passage is meant for you to more freely move towards Jesus, to carry the heavy things of life. Well, as we wrap up with our final lens, I can't help but be struck by these words, he took up and he bore. Just this idea of how freeing that visual is. I just imagine having to carry a heavy backpack filled with pounds and pounds and pounds of weight. And then someone comes along and just takes it off and carries the weight themselves. And what a beautiful image that is for the realities of a relationship with Jesus. That there's a continual taking off heavy burdens so that he can bear the weight of life with us. And I think that's a beautiful mystery to end on. So, friends, wherever you're at, maybe even if you are especially carrying a heavy burden today, or maybe you know someone that's carrying a heavy burden, I will encourage you with this. I hope that the scripture can give you hope in this time. That whether you are carrying a burden now or will be soon, I pray that you and I can remember that we always have someone to bear the load with us, that wants to carry the burdens of life with us. So no matter where you're at in your spiritual journey, I hope you feel loved and cared for on this day.